Hi, I'm Justin Wink, Ph.D., and you're listening to the Engineering Emotions and Energy Podcast. Are you ready to bust burnout, pursue your passion, have more time, money, energy, and relationships you actually love, including the relationship with yourself? If so, then this podcast is for you. I'm a best-selling author, coach, consultant, speaker, and a leader in transforming people's lives from living in fear, obligation, and guilt to living a life of joy, ease, and love. What's most important is that I can teach you all this in a way that's enjoyable, easy, fast, and can actually last. Let's begin. Welcome to the show. Today, I'm asking, have you ever wondered about the intersection of technology and personal fulfillment, or pondered on the transformative powers of coaching and storytelling? Well, that's what I'll be talking about today. Actually, it's not going to be just me talking about it, because you see, we're doing a little pod swap with a podcast that goes by the @Mickey SDT Podcast, co-hosted by Mickey and Nicole. At the end of the show, I'll let you know how you can connect with them. But today, you're going to get a chance to experience the enlightening journey as we chat about my story, Justin's story. That's right. You're going to hear some things that maybe you haven't heard, even if you've been listening for a long time, or maybe you've read my book. So there's definitely going to be some stuff to tune in about that you're really going to enjoy. And we're going to be exploring my journey going from just being, well, not just, but being an electrical engineer to also moving into being a life optimization mentor, author, and podcaster. And then we explore my perspectives on higher education. As many of you know, I have a doctorate in electrical engineering. Talk about credentials, living life to its fullest potential, questioning the traditional constructs of societal norms. We're really getting a lot of cool stuff. We also talk about being a digital nomad, because I was doing that, and Mickey and Nicole both have experiences with that. And we look into what it's like, the impact of living in various countries and the challenges, the rewards, the growth opportunities, and talk about how my experience is kind of doing a little bit of the digital nomad thing, and how that lifestyle allowed me to grow and have experiences. And we're hoping that that's going to help illuminate, you guys that are listening, possibly watching this. Lastly, we get into some really cool stuff on the world of consciousness, including the intriguing possibility that maybe this is all a simulated reality. Talk about how complex human consciousness is, the importance of genuine experiences, and how corporate profit-driven motives end up impacting society. So join us for this really amazing, eye-opening conversation with me, Mickey, and Nicole as we look into the perspectives on life and its endless possibilities. So with that, enjoy the show.
Thanks, listeners. Today we have an interesting guest, and Nicole, thank you, Nicole, joining me, will introduce this interesting guest. Go ahead, Nicole.
Yeah, absolutely. So I met my friend Abhishek in South Korea. And at the time, my friend Abhishek, or Abhi, that's his short name, he was doing podcasts as well, helping people with figure out their spiritual journey. And he was also a yoga teacher, and still does yoga teaching on the side. So he introduced me to Justin, and Justin's going to tell us more about his journey, what he does for a living, and be able to share more of his entrepreneurial journey too.
Yeah, it's great to be here, Mickey and Nicole. I always love being on other podcasts, and it's been fun kind of catching up and listening to how you guys and how Mickey got this started, and how Nicole, you sort of jumped in. And I feel as the show's been going along, you guys have been catching your groove, and I don't know, there's something about, two co-hosts kind of have a good rapport and good banter that kind of, it's fun. And it sort of reminded me, I love, interviewing and being interviewed. And sometimes those are my funnest, most best podcasts that I've ever done. And so it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me. So a little bit about myself is, it's always interesting when someone's what do you do? And sometimes I'm just well, how much time do we have? Cause it's, my background, it's currently I do coaching, although I kind of like to describe what I do more as I like to teach people how to live a more fulfilling life where they can actually be following their passions and do what they like and are in relation with people that light them up and things like that. The term coach, sometimes I go back and forth because it's one of those for the most part, anyone can call themselves a coach. And sometimes people are like, I tell people what I do and they're like, oh, you're like a life coach. And I'm like, yeah, I guess. So I'm going forward. I'm going to say like, no, I'm not a life coach, because I feel like it's a little bit like if we were all dolphins and, we've been swimming around for decades and someone's like, hey, do you need a swim coach? It's like, no, I've been swimming for decades. It's like, as humans, we live life. We're living it whether we want it or not. It's more of like, how do we want to live it? So I'm playing around with like a life optimization mentor or something like that. Cause it's like, I've lived a lot of life and found ways to, I don't know. I think it's all about getting the most of it while we're here, because we kind of have the opportunity to do the same thing in, day out. And I'm sure probably each of you probably have like people you grew up with where they're still in the same town doing the same thing with the same people. And I know both of you have like been around the world and had all these amazing experiences. And I think it's all great. It's all just, how do we want to do it? And I think it's, often when we start having like pains in life, whether it's like actual physical pains, and some of us start to get older and we don't listen, or it's just that pain of the heart going like, there's something more I want to do. And we either don't listen or we listen, but we're like, I don't know how to even get started. That's sort of, who I like to work with. Somebody who's like ready to like, okay, I'm ready to do something different. I just don't even know where to start, because I've been in a bubble of doing what I'm supposed to do, which have experience doing, because like my background really is not in coaching or mentoring. It's like my background's in electrical engineering. I have a doctorate in that, so did tons of schooling, and I'm always happy to talk to people out of like lots of schooling. I know Nicole, I know you have a master's, and I think I heard you on one of your podcasts, it's like you'd help people figure out maybe how to do their master's or Ph.D. abroad. But sometimes it's like not the best thing for some people. Sometimes it's just like another credential so that we can pretend like we're doing what we want, when really it's like, we want to be traveling the world, or we want to be, feeding people, or something that doesn't even require a doctorate, doesn't require a credential. And so, yeah, I've still, also worked in the tech space for like 14 years at various companies. So, which is, I don't know, it's an interesting world, because it's like, to each of you, what's the whole point of technology and engineering? Like, what would you say? Like, what's supposed to be the point of those professions or those industries?
So if I jump in, so I have also a tech background. I mean, I'm not an engineer in hardware, but more in software and consulting with cybersecurity. But I made also recently a change to do something different. So that's why I can really align what I heard from you in the 4 minutes from your book. But before I go further in this, I like what you said, that you don't want to be a coach, because I met so many other people who said they're a coach and they change what they're coach, a manifesting coach, or whatever coach. And I analyzed also a little bit this kind of industry, the worlds, for some reason, and I met some people. So that's why I was really looking for the opportunity to have this conversation with you, to share also my experience I had when I contacted this kind of people. And I don't want to say something bad, but it was only they had a Ph.D. in psychology, or they did some coaching certificate from some institute in the US. So that's why I like your approach, to be honest. And that's also, maybe if you stick more how you came to this, that makes you maybe more attractive for the people to actually have you as a mentor, if you tell this way.
Yeah,
that's my stake on it.
Yeah. So yeah. But I'll kind of touch a little bit on a little caution with coaches, because there are tons of amazing coaches out there. I've worked with plenty of them. I feel like it's great to work with a coach. It's I think it's a little bit of like buyer beware. It's it's similar to almost like medical doctors. Because do you know what they call the person who graduates last of their class in medical school? Do you know what they call them?
No.
Doctor.
See, yes. There's also a doctor.
Yeah, so there's but there's also a lot of great medical doctors. It's so it's go check, can they do, because a lot of times, like I've almost in the last few years avoided any new certifications or credentials, because what I've found is most people don't care. It's just like, well, can you help me? It's like, if you're in pain, if somebody can help you, do you care if they, went to the greatest school or not? It's like, they helped you. That's all that matters. But how I got into coaching, it's, and I don't know if I've told this anywhere recently. It's definitely not in my book. Is the way I first got into it was really through the the pickup, learning how to date better world. Like I was newly working, newly out of finishing my Ph.D. And I think I had worked for a year and I'd just gotten a promotion. And I was like, all right, I did the thing. I'm successful. I'm getting more money. I got a promotion. And I had no one to share it with. And then it's like I go online and I see an ad on Facebook, and it's about basically in humans, there's almost no way to distinguish who's attractive, who's not anymore. It's almost like goldfish. Like goldfish, the only way the lady goldfish, a male goldfish is attractive is that there's other lady goldfish around. And so it's like, read my book and I'll teach you how to. So I got this book. It's called The Tao of Badass by this guy, Joshua Pellissier. And he's since gone on to other things that aren't dating, whatever. And so I read this book and it was just all these things about bringing awareness to how you come out in the world of it's like how body language impacts how people perceive you, and how your language patterns impact how people are able to take your message in and things like that, which at that time, which is now, what is that? I don't know, 10, 12 years ago for me, was a completely new concept. But I got on, this guy's email list, and I don't know, maybe some of you guys are on, different people's mailing lists, but one of the things they'll do is they don't just tell you about their things, but sometimes they're like, hey, I know this guy, he's great. When you start getting into the industry of these types of things, it's like, oh, that's affiliate marketing. I went and signed up for this guy's call, a coach named Michael Burnoff. And I was like, oh my gosh, this guy's not just dating, he's everything. And so I worked with that guy for a few years. And I don't know, it was just kind of oh wait, you can help people not just with creating a gadget and then you hope maybe someday they'll use it for something that benefits their lives. You can actually kind of more directly impact somebody's life. And so that was where the seed for me of getting into coaching came, was sort of being coached myself. And I feel often we're attracted to things that at some point we eventually want to either we just want to do that same thing in the world, or we're okay, I need to do my own spin on it. And for me, I feel I'm sort of doing my own spin. I'm still sort of figuring out because I don't know, both of you, I know you have lots of things going on. So it's sort of hey, I don't want to spend decades to figure out how to be happier. What's the most efficient, easiest way to be happy? And then we realize that you can be happy right now. That's just sort of what I've realized, but it's how do you practice doing that moment to moment, and how do you teach that in a way that people are going to get it? And I continue to try to find ways to refine that and teach it better to more people. But just sort of, it took me realizing that I had to learn that myself. And then, okay, now how do I bring that to more people in a way that's going to reach people that aren't going to be looking to date, or they're not oh, I want to work with a coach, but I feel a lot of it's, in a lot of ways, information is free now, YouTube, podcasts, you can learn anything, but it's really, who are we going to learn it from? That's really the magic. It's the magic of this podcast isn't any information. It's that it's, Nicole and it's Mickey bringing the message and the special secret sauce that you guys bring. That's the magic. And I think, and teaching everyone else that they have their own magic and give that out to the world, that's what makes this whole weird blue ball of an experiment, I think, worth sticking around for day after day, because it's not always easy, right?
Yeah, it's true. So I have a question. So you had to take a coaching course in order to become a coach, correct? And then how long did it take you to become an actual coach within that program?
So what I did initially was I did sort of some online programs that are more just about is it just more about like getting going on doing things in life that, you know, are going to like bring joy or bring what. It's always funny, and I find a lot of in coaching is that a lot of times the marketing is to get you, they use what they want so that they could, at least to me, an ethical coach is going to use a little bit of what you want so they can also give you what you need. So like, for example, you know, what got me to, you know, get that one book on improving dating techniques and things like that was, it's like, oh, I want to be, you know, oh, I'm lonely. I want to like find a woman to date or be partnered with or whatever that is. But what I was taught was, you know, self-awareness of my body, language patterns. That's what I needed, right? We all need improved things like that. And so that was sort of the first course. And it wasn't until I did like after like a couple of years of some online, some phone, and then I did like this one in-person one. And then it was actually sort of like a follow-up program where he's like, okay, I've basically been doing all these techniques on you to get you to learn these things about yourself and talk to yourself in a better way. Now I will teach you the techniques. And this coach used neuro-linguistic programming, which I don't know if, you know, maybe you guys have heard of it, but maybe some of your listeners haven't. But it's basically my understanding is the premise is basically like the language patterns we use in our head will sort of dictate how we often have emotions, or when we have emotions, how we feel about them, and then how we're going to see ourselves and what we're going to believe. And then that's going to actually dictate how things show up in our life. Because often, and this is one of the things that I like to, you know, teach people, is that often, and especially this time of year, because it's, you know, end of November, getting into, you know, New Year's, which is, you know, resolution time, right? Which is like, I'm going to do something different. Like, okay, I'm finally going to quit that habit, or I'm finally going to, you know, start going to the gym, or I'm finally going to save money. And it's something like 92% of people that attempt a New Year's resolution fail, right? And it's why do they fail? It's because all they try to do is just change at the surface level, which is like, oh, I don't go to the gym, I'll get a gym membership. I spend too much money, I'm going to stop. But the thing is, they haven't changed like who they are. The example I always love is Arnold Schwarzenegger and Mickey. Like when I was first listening to you, like, yeah, where are you originally from, Mickey?
Feeling overwhelmed by the daily grind? Imagine if you could pause, reset, and truly connect with a calmer, more fulfilled you. It's not just a dream, it's absolutely possible. Hi, I'm Justin, and I invite you to discover the life-changing techniques in my book, Engineered to Love. Right now, I'm offering a free chapter complete with guided audios that have already helped so many people find peace amidst the chaos. These aren't just any techniques. They're transformative practices designed to help you love yourself and engage deeply with the present moment, without even having to close your eyes to the world around you. So join us at engineeredtolove.com/sample and access your free guided session. It's time to bust the busyness and embrace the joy, ease, and love in your everyday life. Don't wait. Start your journey to a more relaxed and recharged you today, because you deserve to live a life you love. Visit engineeredtolove.com/sample. See you there.
I was born in Germany, and a lot of people compare me, or I remember, to Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he started also something new. I don't know if you know that. He started now a daily email blast about things, about health and mental stuff.
Yeah.
Did you saw that?
I haven't seen it, but I've seen some of his videos and things. Well, and he was governor of my state for a while. I got to vote for him.
Yeah, I know that story.
But yeah, like
he's a kind of I not say idol, but if someone said, I love when he said, don't listen to the naysayers. You can do it.
Yeah, which is true. You got to listen to yourself and then become the self that's going to get you whatever you want. And he was really a master of that. Like, you know, he was born in Austria, right? And then he's like, I'm going to be, you know, the Mr. Olympia or whatever, the world's biggest bodybuilder. And so then for him, because he's like, well, what does that person do? They like eat the right foods. They're in the gym all the time. And then they glow like a champion. And then he did that, I think 4 times over. And then he's like, you know what? Now I want to be the world's biggest movie star. And he became, had that persona, and he became good at changing who he was and the beliefs that were necessary to do that. And so that ends up being and so neurolinguistic programming is like sort of one of the ways, there's all these modalities, and I kind of think like some of these coaching modalities are almost like world religions or spirituality. It's like there's ultimately a single way the world works, how people work, and they start to be very similar. So it's there's like a saying, there's many paths to the top of the mountain. So it's sort of like just find the trailhead that like seems like the least daunting to you, and they're all going to end up kind of ending up at the same place. But so going back to I took this, the advanced level where he starts teaching you the neurolinguistic programming techniques. And so I am certified in that. So I'm certified in that. But other than that, in a couple coaching classes I did through one of my employers, I'm also like a certified yoga teacher. I've done 500 hours of yoga teacher training. But I've almost gone out of my way. There's a ridiculous number of coaching certifications that people can get. And I've kind of gone out of my way to avoid that, because I've basically wanted to focus more on like, well, how do I help people?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I have a question for you. In terms of like your branding and like really representing like, who you are as a coach and so forth. Did you create like a website? Did you create like a LinkedIn? Like, how did you really like let people know about like what you do for a living and that kind of thing?
So, I have a website, justinwink.com. And also I'm on all the social medias, except for Twitter or X. I think I have a handle there, but I don't use it. It got weird. That platform got weird. And so I'm just like, I don't even want to dip my toe in, but so, I'm Justin Wink, Ph.D. And Wink is WENCK on all of those. Cause my thing is like, I want to make it as easy as possible for people to find me, for sure. And then I also have a podcast. So that's the Engineering, Emotions, and Energy podcast. But again, like my name, it's a very unique name. There's maybe in Germany, there's more people that have my last name. It was great. I did live in Germany for 6 months. And they were like, because usually in the US, people are like, are you Winnick, Schwuck? But they're like, Ervink, so good to see you. And I'm like, oh, you guys just know how to say my name, at least in German. But yeah, I do a lot of social. Hey,
I'm
Mickey's back.
Sorry.
Back.
Yeah. So I don't know if you, I wanted to say about something about Arnold Schwarzenegger. Then I got kicked out for some reason, internet problems again.
Well, I think you were going to talk about his latest scandal, and he's got eyes everywhere, and that just got shut down. So don't, you were telling nice things, and that was okay, but I think you were going to switch it, and it's like.
No, I just want to say what he inspired me was don't listen to the naysayers. That's only what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
Don't listen to the naysayers and just believe in yourself. And if you see his story, he came from this little town in Austria, and he made it to a governor of California. I mean, what kind of a story is that, right?
It's well, I think we like to say that's the American dream, right? Just you can come from anywhere of anything and become anyone. Yeah. So it's really good. Yeah. Let's see. I can't.
Yes. I mean, and yes, I was born in Germany. I don't know if that came through before I got disconnected.
Oh yeah, I got that. Which town? Because I was just telling Nicole that I did briefly work in Germany for 6 months.
I was born in Mainz, and I lived around Mainz, Frankfurt, Wiesbaden, and I lived also around Düsseldorf, Duisburg.
And that's like the southwestern part, if I'm remembering my train map.
Frankfurt is kind of in the middle, but in the western, and then it's all on the River Rhine. And Düsseldorf is Köln, Rhine, that's all in the Rhine Valley.
Oh yeah, where there's like a castle like every mile or kilometer along the river. It's just like
Yes,
ridiculous. Yeah, we're in California. We have a castle that was built by William Randolph Hearst, a big back in like the early 1900s. He was actually like the first person to start fake news. Actually, like he would kind of say stuff that would be beneficial for his empire and things like that. But he had a big castle built in on the Central Coast, which is, I don't know, Nicole, did you ever hear about it?
So the thing is, I've only been to like San Francisco and Los Angeles, but I only went for like a short period of time. I went with my family one time and I went to see my friends. Where exactly are you based in California?
So right now I live in an area called Pacifica. So it's just like southwest of San Francisco, like right on the ocean. So
okay.
It's pretty quiet. Yeah.
That's awesome. And you know Abhishek from California, correct? You guys were working as yoga teachers?
No, I don't, I don't think he's taught yoga for a while, and I haven't taught. I was at a retreat and I did one yoga class, but it was like the first time teaching in like over a year or two. It's one of those things I did yoga teacher training. And then sort of after I did my second one, I was like, yeah, I don't want to do this as like a career. It's like, maybe if I ran an in-person retreat, I would do like a little special offering, but I'm like, I don't want to, I like to be able to sort of work a little bit from anywhere. I really enjoy that.
Yeah, you like want to be able to have like that like flexibility to be able to like work remotely from anywhere you please. If you want to go to Germany, you can. If you want to go to Asia, you can. So it doesn't matter, nothing's gonna like really hold you back.
Exactly. Yeah.
So about California, so I was there recently, but not more in Long Beach, California, but it's south of LA.
Oh yeah.
At least. And I was, because I got hired to be on a conference in the travel industry. And before I spent time for work I had a project north of San Francisco for a small credit union for a couple of days. And so that was my tech life, where I traveled around the world. So all over the US, Singapore, Manila, Africa, so all over Europe. And I lived also, grew up in Germany, went to the US, lived in Michigan, went to Canada, lived in Malta for a couple of months, and now I'm in Spain. That's my story.
I'm curious, out of all of those places, which area was like the biggest growth opportunity, which could have been like the biggest challenge, but like you look back and go like, that had the biggest shift in who I am as a person. Was it what location where you're just like, that really was a big shift for
I have to tell you, it's Madrid, because
really that's amazing.
It started with Barcelona, because I lived also in Barcelona before, but Madrid changed me in a way. I don't know what happened, but I don't know. And one day I have to tell the story, but it's not done, this story, so that's why I'm waiting.
You're still writing the chapters of how Mickey trains Mickey.
And I remember, a lot of people told me to write a book, but I said I do podcasts.
Well, that's how I was for the longest time, and then at some point it was like, oh, it's time. It's time to write a book. Time to get the message out in other ways.
You have to convince me for this, because that was one of my. She was not a coach. She was really a therapist. She told me that also I should write a book. Anyway.
Because Nicole was asking me a little bit earlier about websites and social media, and I was kind of going over how I kind of have all of them, because I think there starts to be when we do have like a message or something that we really want to share with the world, there's a little bit of if we want to share it with the most people or the right people, there's a little bit of like we go to meet them where they're at, right? Like
right.
like I also have like a really like, spiritual side to myself, and, started with yoga, but it's since gotten into, other forms of like, spirituality and things like that. But I remember earlier on, it's like going to a yoga class and somebody's all like, and now let your chakra like begin to glow and let forth, the blue healing energy of Gaia. And I was just like, what the hell are they talking? Like, this is just, and I know exactly what they're talking about, but I'm like, you're just talking to the other woo-woo people. Like, you're not helping anybody that needs to. So that's why I always like to teach these concepts sort of like in as plain a language as possible and things like that, and try to find explanations so that somebody who's like even thinks that stuff is crazy, bananas, whatever, but just like, okay, well, can explain it to you in a way that like can actually improve your life, because that's what all this stuff is designed for. Is like, well, can it make your life better, and can you be better with people? And so sometimes like it's like, okay, so for me it was like time to write a book. I think that's where that story was going. Yeah. Is like there's people that only like to read books, they're not going to listen to podcasts or whatever it is. And it's like, okay,
it's interesting that you say that, because I lived in Chiang Mai, Thailand, and that's also like the biggest growth opportunity besides Madrid. But I think it's because I saw so many digital nomads, people working from wherever, like nothing really bounded them, and I was just so used to like the same, 9 to 5. Okay, leave your home, go to the office, come back. So I never knew it was possible to like really work remotely until I was in Chiang Mai, and I went to like a lot of like digital nomad conferences. I met people like digital, like a lot of like cafes and a lot of co-working spots. And I realized this is actually possible. So I think it's also interesting too, as well. I met a lot of people like very spiritual, very much into like their whole yoga, and then taking whatever drugs they were taking. But it was definitely a big growth opportunity. And the same thing with Mike. Same thing with Mickey too, as well. I think Madrid is an incredible place. You get to meet people from like all walks of life. There's like different areas for people from like India, Pakistan, Honduras, and it's just a huge cosmopolitan city. I would definitely compare it to like New York, but way cheaper, obviously. And it's just a great hub. Like if you want to travel to like Rome or Germany, like it's really easy. And it's just a beautiful place with the architecture. I just can't get over the architecture. I'm from Chicago, but architecture. Architecture.
Nothing beats European architecture.
Thank you. You might be the only person, well, maybe Mickey too as well, but none of my friends agree. They're like, oh, Chicago's so beautiful. I'm like, it's beautiful in its own way, but I don't see the beauty anymore. Like I was working downtown over the weekend. I work as a brand ambassador. And so I was like, this is it. This is nothing to me, So yeah, Madrid is incredible. And same with Budapest and Mainz. Mainz was incredible. I was in Mainz last year.
The city where I was born.
yes, I was there. Yes, when I went to,
oh my God.
I went to like the Christmas market in Nuremberg. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, why I choose Madrid, to let me mention that, was more what happened to me. But of course, what Nicole mentioned is also true. But I think it's because Madrid has a certain elevation. It's the highest capital in Europe, and it's something special about it. And I have heard that from so many other people, not only Nicole. I mean, I can tell you 5, 6, 7 more people who tell me Madrid, that's the place for us.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something about when you find like there's something about the geography or the power of just the nature of a place. And then when that's like compatible with where you're at, that it just great things happen really quickly. Like I think there ends up not being any mistake sometimes of like why certain cities have certain things. And then there's usually like some really stunning geographical stuff, like whether the water or mountains or volcanoes, the San Francisco Bay Area, it's like, it's the tech mecca of the world. But also it's also very, naturally powerful, like some of the most stunning like hikes and features and, a giant bay. Like, there's just a lot of powerful nature happening too. And it's right. I find it very interesting how those more and more often go together. And it's, you start getting like the woo-woo energetics of, the world and people. And it's sort of like, okay, it starts to make sense, but
Yeah,
definitely.
it's interesting that you say that because I was in Lisbon just like for a week in August, and I was with my friend, and I felt like Lisbon reminded me a lot like San Francisco too as well, in terms like they had the bridge, that we had like the water. It was very like coastal, I would say, and cheaper obviously, but beautiful place overall. I like San Francisco; it's great.
Yeah, and I haven't been to Lisbon yet. I'm probably due. I haven't been to Europe for like 10 years. I'm probably due for a Europe trip at some point here to go and check it out. I did want to say something to Nicole, your experience of seeing, the other digital nomads, and like I think that's one of the great things about travel is like we get to see other things that are possible. Like I think like one of my earliest international trips was like going to Japan, and that was, I think, the first place I went where they have the stoplights where all the cars have to stop, and then they just have where just all the pedestrians can have a free for all. Like go and go kitty corner or across. And it's like, oh my gosh, that's possible. Which is a little thing, but like seeing somebody, it's like, wait, you can actually work remotely anywhere in the world. And that was like one of the gifts of the pandemic for me, was realizing, oh wait, I don't have to just be going into the office doing 9 to 5. I can do other stuff. I can actually be doing, have a tech job, and I could be doing my coaching, mentoring business as well. And I can take it on the road. And I feel like we get the life that we tolerate. Like, sometimes we like to think like, oh, I'm getting the life I want. And it's like, there's a little bit like we stretch out. This again kind of goes to the identity. But it's like we really get the life that we tolerate. And so it's like if we tolerate that, like, oh, I'm going to be stuck in a 9 to 5, like in a cubicle thing. Because it's like I would see this with my tech coworkers where it's like, it's like one of my coworkers is telling me like, oh, I'd really rather like, go be, living in San Diego or living in San Francisco instead of being stuck out, in more central California away from the coast and things like that. And I'm like, well, just say that you're going to do that. Like, you're very talented. Like, you can easily get a job anywhere else. So the worst is you get a job somewhere else. And they're just like, no, I'm going to wait for a better time. It doesn't seem like a good time to ask for that. And meanwhile, I'm just like, I'm going to go work from Tulum for a week because I want to. And I'm not actually going to ask for permission. I'm just going to do it.
Yeah. And I also relate to you as well, because I realized that before I went to go live abroad as an English teacher, like I told a lot of people and people thought I was crazy. They're like, why would you leave everything in the USA, your friends, your family, your work? I said, because I wasn't happy. I needed to just like go out there and like really explore the world and see like, what I like best. And I realized how addicting the expat lifestyle is. Because I went from Thailand, Korea, Mexico, and then recently Spain. And I didn't stop. I just kept going and going and going. So like now I have this ability here, but I'll go back to Madrid in June because my friend's getting married. But yeah, definitely.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, it is interesting how we can kind of turn just about anything into a drug, an addiction, or a distraction. And so just an awareness of that. But I'm always a fan of at least, getting out of one addiction, at least getting into something else. Because I think once we get going, it's hard to go back to however we were. We eventually settle at a higher state of being, whatever that ends up being for us. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. And I also wanted to say as well, so in terms of like your business and whatnot, how long did it take for you to like launch your coaching business?
So I'm trying to remember. I launched I created an actual like business entity. I think it was like right at the beginning of 2020. Could have been the end of 2019 when I started. But I was like, oh, I'm going to actually like make it go. Like I was kind of doing coaching, within the company I was working for, sort of unofficially. And that was, then there's, well, and then it's in hindsight, I had made attempts to coach people without them wanting to, just because it's like I was like, if they would be better, then my life would be easier. And so this was like not the nicest way to coach people. And so I've since learned that people need to opt in. And most people in relationships like don't like to be fixed. It's just like, just listen to me. And, and so that was in 20, and it's still growing. It's still a learning thing. I think like I still feel like I'm building up. It's probably one of those things, maybe in a couple of years, I'll be an overnight success. But it will have taken like 5 years. But it's a slow build because it's like I'm the product in a lot of ways. It's like, yes, there's a lot of tools, techniques, and things like that, but it's really like, how can I be the person that is an example of that, shares that energy and then is able to present that in a way, but also get the message to someone in a way that they go like, oh, this is for me. Again, like, how do I come to somebody where they're at and get them to like start this journey, which is, you know, like any travel journey, it's got some pains in the ass, and it's like, but you got to like realize it's worth it. I mean, still there's times like when I've it's like just we're doing this boarding for the airplane, like again, like this 30-minute process to just get 180 humans into a metal tube. And there's a little bit of like, it's not the most fun part of the journey, but then like you end up somewhere like, you know, Chiang Mai, Thailand, and you're like, oh, I'm so glad I like went through that, you know, however many hour pain in the ass. And any growth journey, I feel like kind of has those aspects. And so it's how to get to somebody and go like, hey, this is going to be worth your while.
Definitely.
Yeah. But it's a lot of trial and error and and feedback and just learning and adapting. Like, I don't know, there's a sort of an old coaching saying that's like, how you do one thing is how you do everything. Mm-hmm. So it's like how I build my coaching business is how I do my relationships, how I do my friendships, how I do like other stuff. And so it's like, try something out and learn from it. And then again, like Mickey was saying, don't let the naysayers stop me, because I've definitely had some naysayer, you know, family is sometimes the most challenging. I don't know, what was your guys' experience trying to travel or do something different? Yeah.
Yes, 100%. Yes. I come from a very traditional family, like Eastern European family. They want me to like stay here. And I was like, I don't want to stay here. So again, like I like the fact that you brought up, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger, because even though the fact that like he had so many naysayers, he still went on to do what he wanted. And like he listened to his inner voice, he listened to himself, and he's like, well, at the end of the day, I have myself. If you think about it, it's like you have yourself, and you need to do what's best for yourself, because even though you have your family members, you gotta do what's best for yourself. It's literally you, you know. So that's the most important thing too as well. You have to make sure you feel happy in terms of like your environment, like where you are as a person, because that's how I feel it is. But yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Yeah. I mean, we're the ones that are accountable to ourselves for how we enjoyed our life whenever we get to the end of it. Right. Yeah. Like I don't know if I've ever heard anybody say like that, you know, when they're close to dying, like, oh, I wish I would have made my parents more proud or something like that. I think sometimes they'll be like, I wish my dad or my mom would have loved me more. Right. But I view that as just like they never got around to the perspective that the love that we're looking from our mom or our dad is something that ultimately we figure out how to provide for ourselves.
That's right. With friends or like, you know, person you're dating or whatever. But yeah, absolutely. It's true. I wanted to ask you, how do you find your clients typically?
So a good amount is like through word of mouth, I would say, of like, or just people that have been following me for a good amount of time. Yeah, but it's like I have lots of avenues. Like one thing that I've been doing for like the past couple months is like basically like every Wednesday I have an offering where someone can get sort of some free learnings from me. So like a little bit of like how to live an ideal life in a more effective, faster way. And another thing where it's like I do a little like one-on-one hot seat coaching. So I have like these opportunities, and then that's how people can kind of like go like, because I want it to be a good fit, not just for them, but for me, because it's sort of like, you know, mentoring, coaching, it's a very, very intimate thing. And so it's like you want to feel like, okay, I can tell this person like my deepest, darkest challenges, fears, things like that. Mm-hmm. So then we can work with them and improve how it is. Because it's, I don't know, and it's interesting how much people keep private, even from their spouse or whatever. And you know, that's great for me to be able that person where it's like, you know, almost like a therapist. You know, it's like, but I'm not a therapist. I'm not the rapist. People don't have to worry. I'm not here to like do anything to you or take anything. Yeah.
I have a question. Did you ever did some kind of workshops? Because I went to a workshop from another coach, and I like that because it was not only the one-to-one; it was also a group of people, and then it was more so guided that there could ask some question and was like a group of people, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I love doing like small group coaching where it's like I'll take people through some material and then, do Q&A or coach on like a topic that comes up. So I'd like to do those offerings every now and then. And in fact, like the one that have coming up at the end of December, if people want to sign up, it's justinwink.com/ideal life. So that's like a small group coaching where I teach something that helps people learn how to have their ideal life faster and easier. And so that's like for a group of people, and then there's an opportunity to like ask questions, and it's so powerful, like being with a group of people, because sort of like you get to benefit not just from however you learn something, but also from how somebody else learns something, or from somebody else's question. Because I know for myself, when I do group stuff, like somebody might ask a question that like I didn't even know I had that question. And so, or maybe I did, but I was afraid to ask, or I didn't know how to word it. And then somebody asked, and it's like, oh, that's exactly what I needed to know. So it's so powerful working like in groups. A lot of people sometimes are nervous and shy, but really we're all so similar that it's like 80% of problems we all have, we all share them. We think like, oh, nobody's ever had something like this happen to them from a family member. Like nobody's had issues with somebody that's been addicted. Nobody's ever had a partner that's, treated them poorly. Nobody's ever had challenges with, substances or eating too much or drinking too much. It's like we've all had those problems or been impacted by people. And I think that's also one of the things, is to realize that, oh, wait, I'm not the only one. Like other people have these challenges too. So yeah, I do love to do group stuff because it's so powerful. And it's also a good way to just meet impacts, a lot of people's lives, because one-to-one, there's only so many hours in a day, right?
That's true too as well. You're right. Oh, that's actually really cool. Wow.
So I'd suggest, doesn't have to do with me, but to anybody, like try a group anything, like, even if it's like a 12-step, like there's free things. Like a lot of people are like, oh, there's no help. And it's like, there's so much help in the world. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
So I think that inspires some yourself if you hear it also from someone else. That's what you just said, right? And you mean, yeah, I like this. I mean, when I worked in this tech industry, I went to this kind of training of resilience, and so whatever was only to make you a better employee. But anyway, so, and also when I was younger, I read a lot of books about this kind of stuff. So I was always fascinated to learn more about myself.
Yeah. And it's just, there's so many ways that we can learn about ourselves, and it's just kind of like the right form at the right time. And it's amazing how kind of like the more indirect is usually the more effective. Like I know, Mickey, like you're big on story, and it's like story is like really like how we learn the best of just about anything, which is why if you look at any, and I think Nicole, you're like you said, you're a brand ambassador, and so I'm sure you know about the power of story and things like that. Yep. But it's like if you just say like, this thing has a 15% increase in that thing, and so you should do the thing. Most people are like, whatever. But it's like, if it's like, well, back in, when Warren Buffett was a kid, he only started with $15, and then he put that $15 into this. When you can then sprinkle in all these numbers and all these facts with narrative and things like that, ends up being more powerful. Which is why I don't know if I've shared this publicly, but I've written another book that's a fictional piece that I'm working on getting like edited and published, but kind of for that purpose of like more people will read a fun, interesting, entertaining story, and then maybe they'll like get some benefit out of it, compared to like my book. It's called Engineered to Love: Going Beyond Success to Fulfillment. Like it's great, it's really well written, but it's sort of a standard, like here's my life story, and then here's some coaching exercises. And that works great for some people, but like not everybody wants to like read a biography or do coaching exercises. So yeah.
You're right. But that's actually really cool.
But you asked me that I so great on story, but you know where that actually comes from? I mean, and that has something to do with me, that I read the biography of Steve Jobs, and I also was involved with Simon Sinek. And I always start with why. Why you want to help someone? Why is your solution better than others? And that's the storytelling. I mean, and also it's always more powerful to say, if you're really very personal, listen, I went through the same thing, because that creates empathy, isn't it?
Oh yeah. I think it's like, oh wait, because I can relate that you were somewhere similar to me, and then you got to somewhere I want to go, which is way more powerful than the well, here's how you should do it. Like, I'm sure if somebody had come to Nicole when she was living in Chicago and goes like, hey, you should be a digital nomad. You just got to do this and this and this. She would have been like, screw off. But then like seeing these people, it's like doing it, and then that they're like, wait, they weren't so different from me.
Yeah.
The why I do find interesting, because why is a very powerful word. It's almost like I don't know, like an assault weapon of words. It can be used to do some really great stuff for us, but can also be used to harm and keep us stuck. Because sometimes when like something bad happens, or like we're having a hard time, sometimes we're like, well, why? Like, why is nobody like, signing up for my class or downloading my podcast? And then our mind, there's like a saying, I think like in Buddhism, like the mind is the wish fulfilling jewel. So it's basically like whatever you put into your mind is going to like work on it and spit something out. And so if you ask, I can't remember if it's Einstein or maybe it's a Tony Robbins quote, but it's like the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your questions. So it's sort of like, so one of the things that I like to teach is called like identity installation questions, which is where it sort of like presupposes that you are like the person that has something you want. So like if you want to like write something really compelling, it's like, why am I such an amazing, compelling writer? And then like you just kind of like then go on to another thought. But like your subconscious is going to try to come up with reasons to support that. Like the why to do something. I don't know, I think that's like a really interesting question, Mickey, of because sometimes we don't always have like the good motivations, right? And so I think there might be sometimes like the bullshit reason that is part of like the marketing story, that it's like, because companies always tell us like, it's like, why does Amazon do it? So that we can have the best customer experience and, help people and what, but it's like at least in America, all of the companies, they're profit driven. Everything, period, end of story, is to make more money, maximize profits, period, end of story. Anytime it happens to benefit people, it's because some beautiful, amazing individual somehow managed to do like those backflips to connect that thing that might actually help is going to make more money. Otherwise, it doesn't get done. And companies can actually, and there's actually a company in California that got convicted of murder. It's PG&E are the big provider of electricity. Most of California got convicted of murder because they were so negligent in doing their maintenance that it caused that it was seen as like, oh, this was very likely to result in wildfires that killed like 86 people in one of like a few years ago, and they got convicted of murder. And somebody did the cost benefit analysis that like, oh, it's going to be more money. We'll make more money if we don't do the maintenance and risk killing people. Mm-hmm. And that's the current American corporate why. And so some people wonder like, why are things so messed up? Like, that's it. Like other countries, I think they actually kind of do have different rules that like, that can't be your only why. So, but again, that's mostly in the US. I don't know.
This is interesting. I mean, of course, this why came from Simon Sinek, who is American, right? And You're right. It's all this corporate teaching or coaching to make the employees better came from there. But this is again my identity that I came, I don't know how many years ago, to North America, lived in Canada, lived in the US, but I was born in Europe, so I have this roots too. And then I looked also in the other kind of philosophy, Buddhism, Hinduism, because I was interested in this. So now I got this all in me, and I find that's why I'm saying now I'm making this improvement, because I put it all together and I finally understand myself why certain behavior of me, and I figured it out. And this is why I say the time in Madrid helped me, because it's happened at that time, at that location.
Yeah. And I think in some ways, like a real genuine, because sometimes, there's like practical wise of like, well, this is how I make money. If I don't make money, I'm not going to be able to survive, right? Or like, well, if I do this, then people look up to me and I'll get validation and people think that I'm somebody important. Whereas I think when we get to like a really fundamental, like soul purpose, I think there's almost like no words. It's just like you just keep getting drawn to just doing the thing over and over, no matter how ridiculous or how challenging or whatever. Because like I know, like with the coaching mentoring, I've got like a really good friend from high school. He's like a VP at like a software company, and he said to me, I was like, just why are you in this? Why do you do this? Like, this is like the most challenging thing you could possibly do. There's so many easier ways to make money. Like if you like bought like a gardening business, like, do you know how much money those things make, in certain areas of the country? And he's like, because it's like you not only have to be able to coach people, but you also have to do marketing. You have to like run a business. You have to do sales. There's so many things in a coaching business that are required to even be mediocre at it. And I'm just like, I'm just compelled. This is just what I'm drawn to do. Like, I just like, when I'm in it, I'm lit up. I'm like, I feel like I'm doing what I'm meant to do. And I think sometimes there doesn't have to be much more than just like, this is just what I want to do. And I think it's okay for us to sometimes own that like, because this is just what I feel like doing. Because if you really back up, like a lot of stuff like there's no logical sense to like just about anything in existence. Like, like art is, the fundamental, but almost just anything else, anything created. But at some point we just go like, well, this is functional, but there's lots of ways things could function. Like we could all be using air balloons to fly around. Like somebody could make that happen. It's always funny watching like science fiction where they, it's like, oh, it's air balloon based flight economy. So it's just whatever we want. And I think owning that I don't have to have a reason.
I agree too. So especially if you like want to, especially if you're talking about it and like brings you like so much passion and it brings you happiness and it's just very natural. So that could also like be a factor as well, like when you help other people. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
go ahead.
I have a question. So as I heard you did this other kind of job, and how that started that you said, oh, I want to do actually something else. I mean, you said you got a PhD in engineering or microelectronics, something, and then how you discovered that that's not actually what you wanted to do. If you can elaborate more on this.
Yeah, well, and there's still aspects of that I like really do enjoy, because it does like light up a part of my brain and use talents and things that allow me to see like the big picture and problem solve and things like that. So there's still aspects that I have that I enjoy. Yet there's the big human connection, human impact piece that was kind of missing. And it was, as going along doing tech work, especially with a PhD, at some point, you start to know things, and there's other people that need to be brought up to speed, new hires or interns. And I really discovered that like I really liked mentoring and coaching, people that were new, things like that. And that was like sort of the beginning of like, oh, this really lights me up, and it's great. People seem to really benefit from, how do I interact with them, of, with the perspective they get, the shift, and then the changes, things like that. And, enough experiences of people going like, yeah, when you said that, or yeah, our talk enabled me to do this. And now I can't believe that I'm doing this, or that this is now happening for me. And it's like, okay, yeah, I really like this. Apparently I have some aptitude for it. So let me do more of it in the company. And then at some point I'm like, let me start my own business so that I can help people anywhere, not just people that work at the company that I've been working at, but it can help anybody in the world in any field. But I still, more easily connect with people that are like, in professional corporate environments. But it's one of those, sometimes we have connections with people that have completely different backgrounds as well, which is sort of like the fun part of meeting people and connecting with people, right?
But you studied also the stuff that you studied. You was in yoga. You studied this kind of maybe mindfulness and this other philosophy. So you was already involved in that. What helps you now for your coaching, wasn't it?
Yeah. So it was yeah, I was like, in retrospect, I was, doing all of these other things that were sort of in preparation for this. Cause like, even before I got into yoga, I had gotten into, meditation, cause I was, in grad school, I ended up getting like really depressed, going on antidepressants. And I was like, I didn't want to get on antidepressants to start, because I was like, well, what if this takes away the one thing that, makes me like good in school? And then I'm completely worthless. Which, was that like sort of the mind can get into thought patterns that are not helpful. And so we kind of have to get out of that. But I didn't want to be on antidepressants for the rest of my life, because, they'll happily let you take any drug for forever here in the US, and they'll pay for it and you'll pay for it. So I was like, I want to get into meditation. And so I ended up in like a sort of a Tibetan Buddhist inspired meditation group called like Shambhala. That like one of the most famous practitioners is this Pema Chodron. She's got like a lot of books, like one of her books like The Wisdom of No Escape and things like that. But so that was like where I got into meditation and mindfulness initially, and sitting with myself and learning to work with my thoughts. And but again, like that has had a very Eastern cultural influence, which makes it, it's like in retrospect, I'm like, oh, that's why that was so challenging. Cause there's like, most Eastern traditions, most people have like a love for themselves. Whereas usually here in the West, we start with like a hatred of ourselves. Like I'm not good enough. I suck. And so then when we try to like meditate, it just gives us time and another thing to lament of like, oh, I'm so bad at this meditation. I keep having thoughts. I'm a failure. I suck at this. When really the mind thinking is just the mind doing what it's supposed to do. Like we don't get upset at the heart when it beats or the lungs when they breathe for us. So like when the mind has a thought, that's what it's supposed to do. It's what we do with it is the key. It's like we're not supposed to follow every thought. We're supposed to go like, okay, that's cute. We're going to do this now. We're going to keep following our breath in this meditation practice. Or it's like, that's great. You think someone's a jerk. We're not going to follow that. We're going to like see that this person is a human and could have like some valuable information for us. And it's just that exercise, that going back and forth that's like the work and the magic of working with the mind instead of the mind working us.
Yeah.
So that was then again something you used as an alternative treatment. Instead of taking the pills, you started meditation. So it's based again on a personal experience, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And so this is like, ends up being something that I'm an experience, a pathway I'm able to like offer and show that's possible to people by example. And then, through coaching, through mentoring. And I don't know, drugs are interesting because there's really anything that can come that we take externally, we can also generate internally. Like we don't actually need, to take anything, like including, the psychedelic plant medicines. Like I've had experiences, without taking anything that have outdone, any ayahuasca or mushroom thing that I'd ever experienced. And so for me, I'm like,
And you know what you just said is so amazing, because I found that out 20 years ago.
Yeah.
That all this external stuff, what they're doing, whatever, that you actually, if you're really able to create it by yourself. I mean, and the reason why I found that out was because I have all my life problem with sleeping. And then if you don't sleep, you fall sometimes in this kind of meditation, even you don't know about it's meditation because you're in this trance, right?
Yeah.
And then I remember I had this discussion with some students and medical students that, if someone is in drugs, then you have to take them away to sleep, and then they find something similar. And then this is the way to get them away from the drugs. And they're doing it. I don't know, 10 years later. I mean, you can teach yourself, not everyone can, this of course, to use without external stimulation, to put yourself in a trance state or in a high state. That's what I believe. And I have done this with me.
Yeah. And I mean, sometimes it's super helpful to have that external thing that lets you know that such a state, whatever it might be, is possible. Because again, like sometimes it's really hard to try to get out of where we are without knowing that there's another destination is possible. So sometimes it's, good to have whatever that altered state is to go, because I've heard that it's often like, when people do psychedelics, it's like they usually get that, oh, I feel I'm connected. I'm one with everyone. Like I am you, you are me. And the thing is like the drug lets you visit that, but you don't get to stay there. But like when you actually start to cultivate like the lifestyle, the way of being, then you get to live there more and more. And, it's sort of, at least to me, it's like, the concept of being an enlightened being, it's you're living in that state, not as, almost continuously. And I think for most of us, the higher the percentage we can do it, the higher quality our life is going to be, and the higher quality of life everybody's life is going to be. But if we just do it every time, if it's only through the drug, then it's only through the drug. But I think there can be benefit to sometimes using these things to getting oh, well, here's, it's like watching a movie, a travel movie. It's like you get a taste of like, oh, this is what it might be like to go to Madrid, but it's nothing like living in Madrid, right? Like, yeah. But it's like if you didn't have the movie or the the one day, what is those like Kontiki cruises the Australians do, where they like literally spend like 3 hours in each location or something. It's like they got a taste. They barely got a taste, but maybe they'll come back, right? So,
but now I have to challenge.
It's true.
Sorry, now I have to challenge you because I think you can fool yourself to say, I mean, and that will be also the future in technology. There's another science fiction movie where they're actually putting people a mask on, and then they see this 3D, and they let them experience that you're actually in Madrid, but you're sitting only on a chair connected to a computer. So this is happening. And I think the human brain at one point don't see the difference anymore.
I mean, that's a whole interesting topic. This, of a fully immersed. Well, it's like speaking to like the Matrix becoming a reality, right?
Yes, exactly. And there's another movies who actually showcase of that. And there was a movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, because we had him before, where he went to this kind where they actually told him he's traveling to Mars, but he was still on Earth, right?
Oh, it's Total Recall. I don't know if I actually ever saw that. But yeah. Yes. Well, I think they Nicole, it's good meeting you.
I have to go. I have a meeting for work. Bye, guys. Thank you for everything. I really appreciate it.
Bye. Yeah.
Thank you, Nicole.
Mickey and I'll finish up, and we'll. Thanks so much for inviting me. Well, I think that to me, it's like, that's a possibility. Yet I think if we believe that the mind, and this is, I'll be clear, of the brain, of sort of that logical thinking, of just that, if we think that that's all there is to our consciousness, our human experience, then, but I think to me, my experience and belief is that there's more to us than just that there's something to do with the body and, energetics and things like that. And that part, which like even in the Matrix movie, there ends up being, Neo having this, like, there's something off with this and this drive for figuring it out and getting out of it. And I think it's one of those, like, there's more, it's like you could recreate Madrid as much as you could. But I think, we were talking about how, like, there's just something about Madrid and its altitude and where it is that I think there's something like you can't replicate that. And so there will still be something special about Madrid, even if someone could, plug in and get that. And, again, like, will some people choose to go for the fake thing? It's like, of course. But I think we all kind of like make these choices of like, well, let me try the fake thing. And then at some point, some of us wake up and go like, no, I want the real deal. I'm going to, because some people just do drugs their whole life and they don't actually get to have like the real joy, the real bliss of having like an amazing human connection, right? Or the blissful travel experience of like, oh my gosh, I'm in this mountain that I've never seen, before, and I can feel it, the wind and all of that. And some people are ready to take that journey, and then others just want to stay doing the fake thing or the limited thing. And I don't fault anybody for that, as long as people like you and me, Mickey, can have the experience we want to have.
Yeah. So to wrap it up, I mean, I had to, and I think we would have to make another session, but I want to say now something. I had to learn that how I experience things, not everyone does. And that's the difference, right? Because I know that I'm very sensitive, that I feel or experience things others than most of the people. And I found it out in the last couple of years. And that was the key to explain all my experience. Why I had with, 12 years old, an awareness about myself. I mean, nobody has this kind of awareness. But I don't want to put it also that I'm so unique or whatever, but this is just what I deal with. And that's why I started to write, to make music, to do things, to just process all this, right?
Yeah.
And then I made a choice to go in a normal life. And then something happened to me that I almost had to die to understand this. I have to go back. And that's my journey in a nutcase.
That's a beautiful journey, Mickey. It's a gift to be able to have a journey like that, to get the awareness and then the figuring out what's important by almost literally losing everything.
Yeah, I mean, but even I'm struggling in a way, but on another way, I'm happy because I'm happy with my choices, and I just keep going, right? I mean, and I learned so much about myself in the last, actually, since I came to Spain, the last 2 years. First Barcelona and then Madrid, but Madrid was for me level 2.
Second level of life experience. I love that. I feel like this podcast should be endorsed by the City of Madrid Tourism Board. I think we've been doing some good stuff for them.
Maybe Nicole and I can work on this, but I don't have connections. But anyway, but I mean, to wrap it up, I hope it was an interesting conversation. I felt it, right? I mean, I had a good time, and it makes actually, I want to even more. I mean, but that's up to you guys.
Yeah, I've been having fun. I think this might be one of the longest podcast interviews I've done so far, and it's flown by. And I'd love to talk to you guys again sometime, and circle back on some other topics or something. And
right.
We'll also split this show up, or maybe it just ends up being a long show. I don't know. We'll find out. It's fun. Podcasts. There's so much possibility.
Yeah. So then, even me recording, I tell you that I produce. I don't want to make them too long. I like more episodes. And if you give me the file, I will cut it because I like this more. Because I'm not a fan of on our podcast. Sometimes it happens.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like, but you have to also find a way how we can make a break, and that's the producing part, and that's my challenge then, to figure this out.
Cool. Well, I look forward to hearing how you slice it, dice it, prepare it, and what music. It's cool to find out that you put your own music in, because I was listening to some of the shows. I'm like, is this just background music? Or there's something where it's like this sounds like other music, but this also sounds unique. And then I think I finally got that it's your music. And I love that. I love that.
To tell you a secret, sometimes I go to Madrid and record also what's happening on the street. And there's so many street musicians. And then you go to a metro station and then someone plays. And that sounds like totally different, right? Because it's in the hall. So it's a mix of this. I call it also Madrid sound bites. But some of the stuff is also produced by me. So I have to tell the truth.
Oh, cool. Well, you're curating, selecting, so I appreciate that. Well, thanks so much for having me on, and it's good talking to you. Good conversation, and let's maybe do this again sometime.
Yeah, and then by the way, I will put all what I find about you in social media in my podcast description. That's what I do for everyone, and then I hope that I had fun, and let's do it again whenever fits us.
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah, you have it's evening where you are, so have a good evening, and take care.
And you have a good day in California.
Appreciate it. Bye, Mickey, and bye, Nicole.
Bye. Thanks, Nicole. Bye.
Well, I do hope you enjoyed that fun pod swap. So make sure if you want to find Mickey, you can find him on Instagram at Mickey SDT. And you can also find Nicole on Instagram. She's at Nicole Rose Travels the World. And if you want to find the podcast that they co-host often, look for it on Spotify. It just looks for at Mickey SDT Podcast, and all your other directories. You can probably find it there, and I'll have a link to it in the show notes, and I'll have links to their Instagram as well. So fun. We're probably going to do it again. Let me know what you think. Send me an email, podcast@justinwink.com, or come message me on my social media. So that's LinkedIn, Twitter. No, wait, I don't do Twitter anymore. I don't know why I keep saying that. And it's not even Twitter, right? It's X. So Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn, and also on YouTube, all as at Justin Wink, Ph.D. So find me there. Let me know what you think. I'd like to know what landed, what maybe is got you excited. Are you ready to go travel the world and maybe get some digital nomad experience yourself? You're like, no way, I would never do that. And I'm curious, like, why? What's holding you back? Or maybe just what do you love about where you are in your life, which is also a good reason to stay where you're at if you're just like, I'm loving it. So with that, thanks for listening to the show, and take care and good day.